Well, I think we're right on the border. It's good morning and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Center County, it's my honor to welcome Pennsylvania Agriculture Secretary Russell Redding back to Happy Valley. Secretary Redding, we thank you and your staff for taking the time to be here with us today and for the tireless work you do on behalf of farmers and agricultural communities across the Commonwealth. Let's give another round of applause for the Ag Secretary. Agriculture isn't just an industry here in Center County, it's part of our identity. Long before Penn State became the anchor of this region, families were clearing land, planting orchards, and building farms in valleys like Half Moon and Penn's, Brush, George's, Bald Eagle, Moshannon, Nittany, and Happy Valley. That heritage has not faded, it's grown alongside us. Today, agriculture remains one of the largest economic drivers in the county and across Pennsylvania, supporting jobs in trucking, retail, food processing, ag tourism, and more. When our farms thrive, our communities thrive with them. Because farming has never been easy, and it's not getting any easier. Rising costs, unpredictable weather, development pressures, and the challenge of passing a farm down to the next generation are real and constant concerns. That's why it matters so much that we as a community and leaders like Secretary Redding at the state level commit to supporting our farmers. That means preserving farmland, investing in agricultural education, and helping young farmers get started, and making sure that when people in Center County sit down to eat, they have the chance to enjoy something that was grown right here. Which brings me to a farm that embodies everything we're talking about today. Way Fruit Farm of Port Matilda. Way Fruit Farm's story begins in 1826. Generations later, in 1875, Robert A. Way planted the first apple trees on this property, a gift, fittingly, I believe, from the father-in-law, who was in the apple business himself. These trees marked the start of an apple orchard that is remarkably still here today. 6 generations and 200 years of the Way family have carried this farm forward through good seasons and hard ones like this season, adapting each time while never losing sight of what makes it special. Today, under Jason and Megan Coopy, Way Fruit Farm continues that legacy. It's a place where families come together every summer for cherries, peaches, and strawberries, and every fall for apples, pumpkins, and the cider donuts that have become a Center County tradition. It's a place where local produce, local dairy, and local craftsmanship all come together under one roof. And it's a place that reminds all of us, including students and visitors who pass through our region every year, that agriculture is not a relic of the past, it's alive and thriving. Farms like Way Fruit Farm don't just feed us, they anchor our small towns and villages, preserve our open spaces, and connect generations. So again, Secretary Redding, welcome to Center County. We're proud of our agricultural heritage, we're grateful for your partnership, and we're glad you're here to see firsthand what makes this community grow. And now I'll be introducing Jason Coopy, who is, of course, helping the community grow. He and his wife, Megan, have changed and pivoted, as we say in the entrepreneur community, many times to keep this farm growing and successful. Jason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Way Fruit Farm started here 200 years ago in 1826. And our goal is to make it another 200 years, but to make it a 200, we have to make it 201. So we're grateful in a year like this where the trees have not held up to their half of the bargain to helping us through because of the cold weather that we received. We are so grateful that between the secretary, the representatives, and the commissioners, we are getting some help to help us make it to that year 201. So, this farm started in 1875. Well, the fruit side of this farm started in 1875 with a gift of those 1,000 apple trees. And our goal is to keep those apple trees growing and going, and so that this continues on through many more generations. So we're so grateful that we're getting the attention for this. So many times when you have a disaster and problems, it doesn't seem like anybody truly notices. And so we're just grateful that people are paying attention and noticing. What we're hoping that people will do is, even though we might not have as much as we normally do, we're still going to have some. We want them to come out and just still keep supporting farms like ours. And even if it's not us, please go out, help support your local farms. That's the only way we're going to keep them strong. And it's very important to keep them strong. We need that diverse food chain. We need Pennsylvania farming. We do not want to rely solely on farms from far away. We want to do it here locally. And, you know, the best way is support from average customer. The second best way is the help that you see coming from behind us from the government. So, one, just thank everybody for doing this. And I believe that Secretary Redding is up next. And so thank you especially for really understanding the devastation that occurred and just helping us so much. So thank you very much.
Jason, thank you. Hey, Jason, thank you. And a special note of thanks to the family here, Jason and Megan, and the generations that we got a chance to meet earlier. I'm always humbled by the families who host us and the work that they've done. I love the story that as a wedding gift, you got 1,000 trees. What does that tell you, right, about sort of the future and what the promise that generation saw? They would be proud and amazed to be here today. So thank you to the whole family. This is a very special place, certainly at 200 years and the anniversary that's here, but I appreciate also Jason noting we want to get to another year. Right, it's a good way to look, and certainly spoken as a farmer and a grower, it's another year, right? You're looking forward, and I'll talk a little bit about that today. But also to thank you, as I look around here, we arrive at this moment, I think, proud of what we've done, and a shout out and certainly credit to the governor and for what he has done, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. But we arrive here with an amazing sort of partnership that was formed early. With our growers because of their voices and the work that they did to elevate this concern with the state at large, and certainly with the department and the governor and the legislature in a bipartisan way. So just want to say thank you to the growers in a time of hurt and pain and worry and uncertainty. They still showed up, right, to make sure that their voices were heard, that we were understanding clearly the implications of this freeze. And I appreciate all of them for dedicating that time to the effort that brings us here, but also to underscore that this is not an ending. This is a beginning, right? We've made efforts here to secure some resources, but we also now have to do the implementation and get it framed and get the resources out, which is what we want to do. But we did that in a full partnership way. Just want to say thank you to certainly our president of the State Horticulture Association, who you'll hear from in a moment, Sarah Zost, who's been a great voice and advocate dedicated to this and representing the growers and the Hort Association across the state, to Tommy Nagel with the Farm Bureau, who's again been right there with us, and we have had Noah Irwin and the whole PASA team and many others who are here, certainly to Representative Conklin, to our county commissioners, Commissioner Higgins, and to Senator Dush's staff in the Senate. So again, a note of thank you to them. This is, though, a day about the growers. This is about them. It's about recognizing certainly the challenges that they have faced over the last couple of months. It's also making sure that we celebrate delivering on a promise. Right? We said early on that we would not forget about them. We wouldn't forget about the harm that was done through this frost and the lingering effects of it. So we're here to deliver on that promise as well. Just as we were all enjoying that early beautiful spring, we saw the landscape come to life in the spring early. And anybody who lives around these orchards and lands understands that what those early days mean. We saw the trees beginning to flower and the vineyards beginning to bud. And then April 21st happens. And it was devastating because we saw temperatures in the mid to low 20s, again, in a sustained way. So for a lot of our growers, this is both a bad season, at the same time, no season at all. Look at the trees. We're standing here and they're beautiful trees, but it's hard to spot an apple in this orchard. We now have the set of worries about how do you make a payroll? right? How do we address the issues of employees in some cases, employees and staff and family that have been with us forever? And whether we have fruit to sell into retail or wholesale or here at the farm markets. And whether customers, importantly, will they come back? Will they stay here? And I just ask all of us to think about what we can do in the absence of the fruit to still be supportive, right? That's what communities do. I remember the calls we held in early April, and a note of thanks to Penn Ag Industries who helped facilitate, to SHAP, again, for helping to convene. The growers were not asking for a handout. They were asking to be heard. They wanted to be heard, to make sure we understood that this government understood what impacts were occurring and that we were working alongside them. And that's exactly what Governor Shapiro committed to doing. They were the early conversations. Within the days of learning about the impacts, we were on a Lancaster County farm with Corey McLeaf at Cherry Hill Orchards with growers talking about the impacts. And even then, it was obvious about what was going to happen. He immediately directed us to pursue every resource, to take a look at what we could do, immediately asked the USDA and Secretary Rollins for a statewide disaster declaration. That was granted in part. We asked for statewide. We're now at 28 counties and counting. There's work still to do there. Making sure that our federal partners and a congressional delegation and agencies were aware of implications. As one example, the implications on workforce and what happens with H-2A workers in the interruption that we were seeing early on about their either availability or sustainability. The coalition that we built in the Mid-Atlantic region with other state departments of agriculture and governors advocating for crop insurance flexibilities that were certainly needed, and continuing to make the case for meaningful reform to include in our own state. And the credit to the governor who really fought to ensure that Pennsylvania stepped up as well. And today, because of the leadership of the governor and the bipartisan effort between the House and the Senate, I'm pleased to announce that we have $10 million in the 26-27 budget for the Freeze Disaster Assistance Recovery Grant Program. As I shared earlier in our roundtable, we are working real time to design the program to drive out those dollars as quickly, efficiently, and fairly as we possibly can. Those dollars will not replace the lost apples or cherries or peaches. It won't replace them. And it won't help our processors and packers, unfortunately. But it will provide some meaningful financial assistance to help farmers weather this difficult season and build a bridge to a better day. And just as importantly, it sends a very clear signal that Pennsylvania stands with the farmers. When disaster strikes, we don't walk away. In fact, we show up. For now, our work is shifting to the design and implementation of the program. We've already met with a number of growers and sketching this out to make sure that we've got the guidelines that will be guiding the program and payment, preparing this for publication, of course, making sure that we can get the program opened as quickly as possible. And the goal is really simple. We want to get the resources out as quickly and as efficiently and as fairly as possible. So our conversations continue, by the way, with the USDA. We continue to urge additional federal assistance, and this is important as Congress particularly considers a disaster response package to sort of America's sort of crop and natural disasters. We want to make sure that the fruit production and specialty crop production in the Mid-Atlantic region is considered there as well. We'll continue to advocate for greater flexibilities for crop insurance, and not just for the fruit, but really the specialty crops at large. This is an issue that has been lingering for some time, so we want to keep working at that. We also know that this issue doesn't stop at the state lines. Right, the work that we do between the Shenandoah and the Hudson valleys of this country are important. And then final point, this is also about resilience. You know, I admire the work. I understand each of these families and the commitments they've made. to being here. And this is a very difficult situation that they find themselves, quite frankly, we find ourselves in. But instead of closing the doors, we see it here at the Way Family Market, is that there are new ways to welcome people to this market, right? They've expanded events, they've created sort of new experiences. They reminded families that supporting a local farm is about much more than one crop. Whether it's the bakery and the cafe and the cider and pieces that the commissioner has noted, these are businesses that continue serving their communities in countless ways. And that's an important message for all of us as consumers. So if your favorite orchard has fewer apples, go anyway, right? Go for the baked goods, have lunch, take your family and have a festival, support the farm. Every dollar, this is important, every dollar spent at local farms helps sustain a family business, and that has invested here and across Pennsylvania for generations. That's important to Pennsylvania agriculture. So I could talk about this, but it's also more important to talk about and hear from the folks who actually are impacted by it. And I'm very proud that the president of the State Horticulture Association is here today, a good Adams County, and by the way, but also somebody who's just been just at the very center of keeping us focused, has represented the voices of the many growers across the state, has carried her own passion because she sees what it looks like on the farm and in the checkbook to the issue that we're trying to address. So thank you, Sarah Zos, for doing that and for being here. So honored to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sarah Zost. I am the president of the State Horticultural Association of Pennsylvania, which represents the state's tree fruit growers. Across the state, growers are seeing losses of 80 to 100% of their summer fruits like peaches, nectarines, and cherries, plums, and our apple crop is seeing anywhere from a 50 to 100% loss. People are facing devastated financial losses, and they're making very hard decisions with their crews and with their expenses to try to make it to next year, like we've covered previously. My own farm, Bonnie Bray Fruit Farms down in Adams County with Secretary Redding, is facing 75% of a crop loss. We barely have the income to make it to next year. The state aid will help right now to help cover the costs that we have between now and then. Federal aid may be on the way, but there are farms that cannot wait that long. We have farms right now who count on their summer income from those peaches and nectarines to pay for their harvest staff. And right now they're scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to make ends meet just to get the apples in the door so they can sell those to make it to next year. I want to thank Secretary Redding, the governor, our state representatives, and state senators for their quick response to our need. This was a 2-month turnaround from the freeze itself to the budget being passed, and that is extremely fast. We appreciate that they understood the devastation we're seeing and that they took action quickly. But like Secretary Redding covered, this was not just money. We were not just saying, hi, help, we don't have fruit, we don't have an income. We also had crop insurance issues, we had labor issues, and we had issues with trying to talk to USDA and ask for some flexibilities. And Secretary Redding and PDA have helped us navigate that process and advocated on our behalf throughout these last few months. We could not have done it without them, and we are very fortunate to be in Pennsylvania with such a great administration. Thank you very much. Next up is President of Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, Tommy Nagel.
Good afternoon. My name's Tommy Nagel. I'm president of Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, and we'd just like to be thanked to be involved with this conversation today. We are the state's largest general farm organization, representing approximately 26,000 members. First, we'd like to say thank you to Secretary Redding and everyone else here today that allowed us to be a part of this. As you know, the late April freeze was devastating to the farmers across the Mid-Atlantic region. Pennsylvania fruit growers are no exception. Our members experience significant crop loss, and with our farm families experience millions of dollars of impact. Statewide impact of the disaster is reaching approximately $200 million. We were first alerted The impact in the late April freeze when our farmers we heard that our farmers sprang into action. We had several meetings, and that's how the conversation started. We'd like to say some of the partners with that was obviously the Department of Agriculture, Penn Ag Industry, and other stakeholders found us how bad the situation were and the widespread losses. Pennsylvania Farm Bureau put in a statewide survey to get the early assessment of how devastating the freeze was, and the immediate results were staggering. More than 65% of our members who were surveyed reported they suffered approximately a 75% loss, with 29% of our fruit growers reporting a total loss. The information was quickly passed along to Secretary Redding and his team. It was crucial for our fruit growers. We were able to quickly hear the concerns of those in the industry and voice the concerns so that action could be taken. With your help of Penn Ag and the Department of Agriculture, we are not only able to secure crucial funding for the 26-27 budget year, we were also able to secure disaster declaration from USDA for 17 counties in Pennsylvania who were impacted by the freeze. We were able to accomplish this in just over 2 weeks for our members because people standing here today were willing to come to the table and get the work done. I appreciate the partnership with everyone here today and with all of your organizations, and we look forward to continuing the work until the problem is solved. Thank you for your time. And with that, we would like to bring up Noah Irwin.
Good afternoon. My name is Noah Irwin. I'm the Associate Director for Policy at PASA Sustainable Agriculture and a pastured livestock farmer in Perry County. For 35 years, PASA has worked with our network of farmers and food system professionals to advance sustainable agriculture with programs grounded in farmer-driven training, education, research, and community. First, I'd like to just thank Megan and Jason for having us here today and for all of the farmers who shared their story during the roundtable. We're also extremely grateful for this critical investment by Governor Shapiro and the General Assembly. Pennsylvania is becoming a national leader in providing innovative, targeted financial support to protect farmers in times of crisis. Just as how seemingly small investments provided at the right moment mitigated devastating circumstances for farmers facing high-path AI and the spotted lanternfly, I believe we'll look back in a few years and see similar results for our fruit farmers. Farmers are also on the front lines of the climate crisis, so they must be given resources and support, like this grant program, to adapt and thrive in our changing climate. That said, the effects of this historic freeze will be felt by the entire food system: farm markets, schools, CSA programs, the charitable food system, and grocers. Everyone that relies on Pennsylvania-grown fruit to feed families and serve their customers. As one farmer in our network said, "At my farm, we buy in fruit for our farmers markets and will struggle to provide that service for our customers this season. Our market as a whole will suffer." Another said, "As a member of the Farm Stress team, I'm also worried about farm families and their mental health." And finally, one shared that we have an orchard and these fruits are donated to those who are food insecure in our community. As PDA develops the guidelines for this grant program, we want to highlight the 2025 mask payment from USDA as a gold standard for relief payment distribution. It had a simple application and it was tiered, in that small farms received 4% of revenue in relief payments, medium farms received 3%, and large farms received 2%. A similar system could be established based on acres of fruit. Thank you again to Governor Shapiro for his leadership on this. We look forward to helping spread the word about this program once it's live. And next up is one of the legislative champions for this, Representative Conklin.
I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I want to thank the Secretary, the Way family, Fruit Farm, for allowing us to be here and giving us such a beautiful day. The growers that traveled this way and the staff that works in all the departments. Because nothing happens by an accident. It happens because of hard work. And when you look at the growers, that's the beginning. Without those individuals here today, we would not be able to feed our families. When you sit down at the table, if nothing's there, you realize something's wrong. And what's most important is that we as the legislative body, the Secretary Redding, and all the individuals that were involved in this understand that. And just because Mother Nature threw a curve doesn't mean that the growers still did not have anywhere from 80 to 95% of the work to do not to have a profit. So it's so important that we make sure, as said earlier, that we're here next year, that those growers are still viable, that they're still able to make a living, and they're able to give to us, the citizens of this state, exactly what we need and not what we want, but we need to have that fresh fruit and those things put on our tables to feed our family. I want to thank you all so much for being here. And Secretary Redding, I want to thank you the most. Please.
Good. Representative, well said. Thank you for sharing the perspective, and I think reminding us, just the ripple effects of this freeze. Right? We had a conversation earlier about sort of the impact on, obviously, this market and these orchards. You've heard from Sarah and Noah and others about sort of the farm level impacts. What is not seen always is sort of the other issues around food banks and being able to provide that resource to the charitable side, but also our farm market impact. The worker impacts are here, right? This land still has a high degree of stewardship required. You still have to pay the taxes on this land. These are all things that are considerations as we look at the impact of the freeze. But I'm also comforted by the knowing of the farm and the growers and the general sort of approach that the farm community takes every year. And every spring, they plant again, and every season they invest again. And every year they believe again. And we'll do it again. Right? We're going to step forward and try to lead here with what Pennsylvania does in response. We'll do that in full partnership that was formed from the day that this freeze occurred back in April. It is our legislature, it's Governor Shapiro, it's Congress, it's all of the growers, it's the support community that is here. And as consumers, just to say that we have a choice. We can still go to these farms and look and patronize them and work with them and enjoy all of the other activities that they are providing and benefits that they're providing in addition to the fruit that we would purchase. So work to come, more efforts here in terms of our freeze and the design of the disaster package, but we're anxious to get it done. In fact, we're required to have by mid-August sort of our guidelines out and the process underway to make sure that we can, again, support our growers, get the resources out, and help them out financially. So thank you all for being here. To each of our speakers today, we appreciate the partnership very much. Entertain any questions if there are some. If not, we're going to take a quick tour. Please, Jason.
Okay.
You don't have a normal growing season. Without the freeze, what would this look like right now if you had a more?
So these trees should be full of hundreds of apples. This is actually normally our U-pick orchard, and my joke this year is it's going to be U-pick, 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 we're done. So it's going to be a challenging year, especially from our U-pick operation, because they're just not here. You can see the trees, and there's a couple here, and a lot of the ones that are here are misshapen. So these trees should be full, and unfortunately, just because of that April 21st date, they are not.
Base. Are you hearing more concerns from your customers?
Yeah, everybody's been very understanding, but by the same token, everybody still loves what we produce. So we're lucky that what we're going to do is try to use the apples that we do have very judiciously and make sure that we have something for the customers. The problem really has been the stone fruits. We just don't have those peaches that we normally have. And so, it's very challenging, and it's harder to get people to come out. So I think that's what, I've heard it echoed a couple times. Please come out, please keep supporting your local stores, your local farm markets. They're going to need it, especially this year.
Right.
Do we have a rough estimate on how much of the crop that you lost this year?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. So, the estimates are still hard to take on the apples. We're somewhere in that probably 50% range of apple loss. In certain areas, it's 100%. And so in this orchard that's by the store, it's 100%. Across the board, we're probably in that 50% range. But stone fruits, we had zero. In the entire 20 acres worth of peaches we have, I could find probably 1/2 bushel worth. So about 25 pounds worth of peaches in 20 acres. So, it's this midsummer that is extremely bad for us. Once we get into fall, I think that we're going to have enough apples to at least make it look normal-ish for the customers, but it's not going to be normal-ish for us on the income.
Do we have an idea, even though it's early, how much money from that 10 million that Way Fruit Farm would be getting?
No. Just to say, I mean, and this is an important point, we're very pleased and honored to have, a program and resources to back up the program at 10 million. Our original estimate back in April with the assessment that was done that Tommy Nagel noted and others is we're somewhere between 150 and 200 million in loss of specialty crops, and particularly in the stone fruits and apples. So you have 10 million. We're glad to have it. It'll make a huge impact, but proportionally to the losses, this is where we really need Congress and the federal government to sort of step up and back this up, right? There's going to be other losses that are far outside the reach of our 10 million. So don't have exact numbers yet for any of the farms. We're still working through what that calculation, if you will, looks like, and how to apportion both the money we have, but also against the numerous farms here in the state. To Jason's point, we know that particularly in the peach fruit crop, very few, if any, peaches in Pennsylvania. Right? It's been one of probably the most immediate and difficult moments is to recognize that fruit would normally be your bridge to an apple, right? It's the bridge to the fall, to bring people in, to give you cash flow, to keep your workers or get your workers here. And without them, this sort of chain reaction then unfolds, right? How do you attract folks to the farm if that's part of your offering? How do you bring workers in if you know you don't have that fruit? And you're really not sure about what quality fruit you're going to have for apple. So that's all playing out real time. It's been there since April, but every day that we march towards fall, the realities of what this disaster is and how long it will linger become real. Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. To our friends here, thank you for hosting Megan and Jason. Appreciate that. To each of our presenters and partners, thank you. Another question?
Yes, do you have a timeline of when exactly these funds will be distributed?
We don't have an exact timeline. So we have one sort of date, sort of mid-August, set by the legislature as part of the budget enactment that requires the department to basically publish the policy guidance and the application for the growers to use to seek that. Beyond that, there's not a dateline per se, but we're hopeful that we can get the applications back, make the assessment, and then work through that payment process early in the fall. Okay? And part of that's to match up with when the fruit crop would have normally been available for income to try to help the growers. Okay? All right, I think we're going to do a short walk around tour.
Sure.
Is that right? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Jason, forgive me.
It was so great to have Secretary Redding meet with a bunch of the farmers here today. It was so great to share what's going on in our world, and so oftentimes these disasters happen and you feel like you're alone. So just the fact that the government is paying attention to what we need and trying to help us means so much, and I think it does to all the growers that showed up here today.
Yeah, so seasons are important in agriculture, right? We saw in the spring when the frost, the freeze hit in April. We were in the orchards with the governor in May. We went through a budget season, and now we're sort of post-budget season in the implementation. So I look at that as a season. So we now have $10 million that came through what we saw, right? The governor's response and the bipartisan support, and then a budget. Now we've got to get at it to make sure that we can get the dollars out to these growers. Part two is we heard directly from growers today. You see the orchards. There's supposed to be apples there. There are no apples, right? And these growers are all trying to figure out how to get from here to 2027. Yeah, so they're very grateful, that the state has responded, the governor's listened, right? We've come through with the $10 million for disaster assistance to help them. They're very grateful. The other thing that came out strongly today is sort of the ripple effects that are playing out, right? If you have a farm market will consumers still come to your farm market? Right? What do you do with the workers if you don't have the crop to harvest? What happens to crop insurance this year and next year? What do you do in terms of just stewardship of these orchards? All of that was part of today's conversation. But my takeaway, there's also a high level of resilience. Right? Folks appreciate where we are as a state and what we've done. But they're also thinking about, okay, we'll manage through this year. Thank you for remembering us and making sure that it matters to both our state and our government that we're here and this industry is important. But they're also looking forward to 2027.
Can I ask how many varieties there are? Apple varieties? Well, we grow some summer varieties, which may not be as successful this year. We probably have.
So probably what happened was there's some damage on this vascular system. And it's just, because by this point of the season, it should be...
Yeah, they ought to be pretty
Yes.
decent size, right? Yeah, 'cause you've had rain here.
We have. So it's been a brief growing season. So they should be way larger than this. So I'm guessing what's happened is, even though it's growing, it's just...
Yeah.
And I have that in many places where we have apples. One tree next to it, the apples are this big, and then they get to, the other tree will get to this size of the stalk. So
I have that dilemma. I just said no.